I have a creaky chair. That's nice. All right.
And at $10, what do you do?
Yeah, it's a great find for $10.
Yes.
All right.
So, are we ready?
Yes. Are we gonna sync on bullshit?
Yes, I think that's a perfect thing to sync on.
Yep.
All right.
All right.
So, everybody ready? Everybody recording? Good to go?
Yes, good to go.
I'm good to go.
I'm
All
good.
right. All right, then on the count of 3, we're going to say bullshit. 1, 2, 3. Bullshit.
Bullshit.
Welcome to the Skeptic's Guide to the Universe. Today is September 11th, 2014. I'm your host, Stephen Novella. Joining me today are Bob Novella,
Hello.
Jay Novella,
Hey guys, how's it going?
Evan Bernstein,
Howdy, hi.
Rebecca Watson. Hello. We've got a great show lined up for you. Who's That Noisy? Science or fiction? Some amazing news from the world of quantum physics, and later on in the episode, we'll have an interview from the amazing Randy.
Hello.
John, what the fuck?
Welcome to the Irreverent Skeptics podcast. Today is September 14th, 2014. I'm your host, John Omby. Joining me today are Erno,
Hello.
co-host and badass sound engineer, Mike McElroy,
Ahoy hoy.
Mike Bowler,
The cake is a lie.
dumbass.
I'm sticking to my story. I'm Rebecca.
Oh, right on.
Hey,
Randy
actually respect
Anderson.
your life choices.
Hello, hello.
Today we're going to be talking about lying and deception. What's going on in your brain when you lie? Can we actually detect deception? Can we use drugs to force people to tell the truth? Does anything else in nature lie? We'll talk about all this and more today. And as for the special guest, nope, I lied. Sorry about that. Should we announce here that if you can guess, if you're the first person to send us an email or a comment or a message with where the cake is a lie is from, you win. A mystery
you win?
prize. A mystery prize.
It's like the mystery boxes in eBay.
We gift in mysterious ways.
Mm-hmm.
Are there mystery boxes on eBay? I instantly want one.
Hey, I had a
never
mystery
tried.
box once and I had to see the doctor afterwards.
Oh, that's funny. You know what is on eBay, which is pretty disconcerting, is you can type in flux capacitor, and there are many, many entries. Yeah, I wish I were
That's
kidding.
pretty sweet.
And speaking of lying, I'm playing a lot of a game called Avalon, which requires a lot of lying.
I don't think I've heard of that. What's
Me
it
either.
about?
Have you heard of the Resistance?
No.
Yeah,
No.
The Resistance is a game where you play as insurgents or something, and you try to screw over the government, and you have government spies in your group, and all the players are playing on one side, and you have to guess who the spies are.
Damn Talibans. So
Yeah,
that's,
Avalon is almost exactly the same game.
huh. Yeah, I haven't heard of it. I have to look that up. That sounds interesting.
Yeah, it's a card game, so it's easy to
It's
It
a
was,
hidden identity game.
take everywhere.
There are 3, depending on how many players you got, 2, 3, or 4 bad guys that the rest of the team, everybody has to figure out who they are. And so the bad guys are trying to lie and screw up missions and stuff.
I like the sound of it.
Deception!
So I'm going to start with a story. This has a special place in my heart of sorts. It's from my home state of Oklahoma. KOFOR, a TV station there, reported a story on an Oklahoma woman who had her driver's license photo taken while wearing her religious headwear. That headwear? A colander. She's a member of the Church of the Flying Spaghetti Monster, which I'm sure we're all aware of. She identifies herself as a Pastafarian. The story says she claims to wear the colander at all times, while also in the story says before she got her license photo taken, she had to run out to her car to get the colander. So you're wearing it at all times. So I'm going to let you guys work out that part on your own. Anyway, my thoughts on the Pastafarian thing, to quote directly from an email exchange I had with Mike McElroy.
That's me.
I said, and I quote, "I don't see the whole Pastafarian thing as any kind of win for atheism or skepticism. It's a feather in the cap of anti-theism, and it achieves the goal of being fucking annoying." Yeah, so congrats, you twats. You made a spectacle of yourselves. That's pretty much my take on it.
John, I think this has been stuck in your noodle for too long and you just need to get pasta it.
It's something I don't really think about often. It's just that whole Pastafarian thing. I don't know. It's kind of silly. Yeah, it's funny, but at some point you're just trying to make some stupid point, and you're just trying to.
Yeah, I think it depends on how far they take it.
Yeah, perhaps.
Yeah, but it kind of illustrates the point of having ridiculous beliefs.
Yeah, to who though? To the people that have those. Like, if you're the person that thinks, "Oh, these people have ridiculous beliefs," I'll show them what that's all about. You just look like an asshole to those people. You're not making anyone think about their religious wear or their religious doctrine or their habits.
But John,
you just look like someone that hates them and it looks like an asshole.
Yeah.
don't you know about the terrible? Don't you know about the terrible religious intrusion into the DMV, John? This is exactly where they need to be targeting. You have to say a prayer to get your license now, and you have to thank God every time you want to turn left. And
Well, if you want to fly a plane for the
pray to
military,
Jesus that he'll open up some traffic for you and let you turn.
I will say, John mentions God and Jesus when he's driving quite a bit.
That is true.
If you listen to him talk, you'd think Jesus' middle name was Fuck, because he's like, Jesus, fuck, where did all these people come from?
If God and I were on really close terms, he would be damning people and things all around this city all the time.
yeah, John, you have a very active prayer life. Fucking Jesus Christ! Goddamn! What the fuck, Jesus?
Yeah, so you
Amen.
have been in the car with me. I didn't realize we'd ridden together. Nah, it's not really that bad. It's just occasional.
What? Occasional.
Occasional.
The truth comes out.
Yeah, when you hear the word occasional, just think instantly frequently, because that's almost always bullshit.
Oh,
This is a show about deception.
I was about to say, you're giving us an example right here.
Well, see, that's the thing. I guess this is self-deception. I don't think I road rage that often, or I don't. I guess rage isn't really the right term.
No, it's not.
I don't get frustrated with traffic that often. I don't think.
I do too.
Perhaps I do.
I got just today there was some guy who was merging onto the highway, and the person in the lane they were merging into decided to slow down to let them merge in front of them, but both cars kept slowing down, and so they just came to a stop next to each other. I'm like, stop trying to be a fucking nice guy. Just drive your car and let the guy get behind you.
They out nice guy to each other? That is so weird. That could never happen in Pittsburgh.
Take your colanders off and drive with your head straight.
The colander is interfering with your vision here, guys.
I think actually I don't cuss other people in traffic here so much as I just cuss the layout of the city.
The roads.
Shit, is it a clusterfuck?
What I'd like to see is somebody who actually takes Pastafarianism seriously and does all the stuff, wears the colander all the time.
Yeah, right. Well, actually, we don't take it seriously, but this Friday my atheist meetup group is going to be dressing up as pirates and going to have pasta.
Awesome. That sounds good.
Because pirates are holy to the flying spaghetti monster. As you know, as the number of pirates in the world has decreased, the rate of global warming has increased, and so there's a direct correlation, inverse correlation between number of pirates and level of global warming. You add pirates to the world, you're fighting global warming, and the flying spaghetti monster is very happy about that.
Yeah, do your part. You'll be blessed by his noodly appendages. Yeah.
So here you go. So here's my question: are you hoping to raise any kind of awareness in doing this, or are you just doing it for fun?
I'm just doing it for fun.
Okay, so if you were pretentiously telling me, oh, we're going to raise awareness about the so on and so forth, blah, blah, bullshit about religion, then you would be, in my opinion, being an asshole. If you're like, no, we just think it's funny and we're having a good time with it, fine,
well, we need
do that.
We are going to be
if I see you on TV doing some horse shit about, this is my religion, and I have to wear this pirate, I don't know why you got that accent all of a sudden.
I don't know.
I have to wear this pirate outfit.
That's the accent.
Then I will tell you my thoughts on it the next time we're on here.
But what about the Pope and his hat?
Oh, God. That is like the least of my complaints about the Pope. I mean, it's a ridiculous fucking hat, but that's the least of my complaints about the Pope.
The vestments are like zillions of dollars. Those are a problem. Those very fancy outfits that bishops wear, those things are so expensive.
But I think, in a way, it's kind of like a requirement for being taken seriously as a real religion is you have to have a goofy hat.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just realized
the Jews have their hat, the Muslims have the headscarf, and the Pope.
I've never noticed the Pope's shoes. Do you think he has a pair of holy Crocs?
Well, the last Pope had these. I don't know if it's this one or the last one. I think Benedict has some like bright red.
Oh, those are Prada. Oh, very
God.
nice. Very nice.
For those of you not watching right now.
Hail the flying spaghetti monster.
Yes, Dumbass has become Blackbeard, Captain Blackbeard Dumbass.
Nice. Yeah, those like $500 Pradas or Gucci or whatever. Those were something else. The last Pope. That was the Pope. What's his name? The evil emperor or whatever he was.
Benedict Popatine.
Yeah, that was him. Yeah, he had the fancy red shoes, and by the way, was not at all gay. Not at all fashion forward or gay. No.
Nope. So, hey, McElroy, I got a question.
Sure.
If one is lying, does their brain work differently when they're lying?
Well, John, that's a good question. I think we should turn to the research to find out about that. Alrighty. Good segue. I like it.
I know, very nice. Well done.
Master of the segue. Speaking of
It's the
segues,
best I could do, goddammit.
speaking of segues, did you know that the guy who owned the Segway Corporation died by riding a sports Segway off a cliff? Anyway,
I did.
so there was a study in the March 2002 issue of the journal Neuroimage called Brain Activity During Simulated Deception and Event-Related Functional Magnetic Resonance Study. And the study said that the guilty knowledge test has been used extensively to model deception, often with the use of a polygraph. And obviously, we're not talking about polygraphs here. This is a magnetic resonance. This is a magnetic resonance study going on here. The premise of the guilty knowledge test. The premise of the guilty knowledge test is that you test people for knowledge that only a guilty person could have, and it's like you ask them a series of multiple choice questions, and usually they consist of 6 possible answers, one of which is correct, and the other 5 are equally plausible to somebody who doesn't have the special knowledge that a guilty person would have. For example, a person suspected of murder could be asked to read aloud 6 possible murder weapons, and polygraphers would look for increased physiological responses in suspects when they read out the correct murder weapon. Backed up with several more similar questions, the person who consistently responds more strongly to the correct answer is judged to possess knowledge of the incriminating information. And so a person who is innocent should only show a marked response to the correct answer at random, like 1 in 6 cases on average. But in this 2002 study, let's see, blood oxygenation level dependent fMRI contrasts between deceptive and truthful responses were measured with a 4 Tesla scanner, which is a really powerful MRI scanner, in 18 participants who took the test. So this is obviously a more rigorous means of testing than just a simple polygraph, which has to be interpreted by a trained tester and is open to a lot of subjective interpretation. It's basically nothing but subjective interpretation.
A whole fucking lot.
Yeah. So, but what they found was there was increased activity in the anterior... I'm hearing myself talking. I don't know who that is, but they need to mute themselves. I can't talk and hear myself talking. It's screwing me up. Everybody else, please mute yourself. Sorry, guys. I'm still hearing it.
I keep hard muting. I wonder if that's somehow doing it. Say
I don't
something.
think so.
Are you hearing yourself?
Wow. Yes.
So it's me. Well, I'll hard mute as well as mute myself in the Hangout then.
Okay.
Sorry.
Sorry.
Unmute, dumbass.
Can I unmute? I don't think I can unmute.
Dumbass, unmute yourself and tell Mike to fuck off.
No, he's too nice for that, I think. He's Canadian. He's too nice for that.
It'd be
All right.
I'm sorry. Fuck off.
There we go. All right. So, what was I saying here? They found increased activity in the anterior cingulate cortex, the superior frontal gyrus, and the left premotor, motor, and anterior parietal cortex that was specifically associated with deceptive responses. The results of the study indicate that cognitive differences between deception and truth have neural correlates detectable by fMRI. Inhibition of the truthful response may be a basic component of intentional deception, and the anterior cingulate cortex and the superior frontal gyrus are components of the basic neural circuitry for deception. So there's definitely some activity going on in the brain that's detectable and shows patterns when people are deceiving. There's another study in the August 2004 issue of the Journal of Neuropsychiatry and Clinical Neurosciences that shed some interesting light on the subject. In the study, a pilot study of functional magnetic resonance imaging brain correlates of deception in healthy young men, the researchers, quote, hypothesized that specific brain regions would activate during deception. Hypothesized that specific brain regions would activate during deception, and these areas would correlate with changes in electrodermal activity. I don't know what that is. I should have looked that up. Oh well. 8 men were asked to find money hidden under various objects. While functional MRI images were acquired and EDA was recorded, the subjects gave both truthful and deceptive answers regarding the money's location. The group analysis revealed significant activation during deception in the orbitofrontal cortex and anterior cingulate, but individual results were not consistent. Individually and as a group, EDA correlated with blood flow changes in the orbitofrontal cortex and anterior cingulate. Specific brain regions were activated during deception, but the present technique lacks good predictive power for individuals. And there was an October 2011 review of the literature published in The Neuroscientist that said that a growing body of evidence suggests that the prefrontal cortex plays a key role in deception, and some researchers have recently emphasized the importance of other brain regions, such as those responsible for emotion and reward. However, it is still unclear how these regions play a role in making effective decisions to tell a lie. So what does all this mean? Well, basically it means that there may well be a way to detect deception in a non-pseudoscientific, non-subjective fashion through the use of MRI, or fMRI. But the evidence is still pretty ambiguous. The aggregate data shows trends in activation of a few parts of the brain while a person is actively being deceptive, but the use of the brain images as an indicator of deception is inconsistent for individual subjects. Further research would have to try to ferret out a consistent method that would work on a single person rather than just show a trend if you really wanted to use this for lie detection. The major recurring theme that kept popping up in my research is that there's not just one single piece of the brain that's responsible for lying. Many different parts of the brain take part in the process of building deception, and different kinds of deception use different parts of the brain. For example, different brain centers are involved in telling a blatant lie about something when you know what the truth is, and in inventing a fact about something when you have no idea what the truth is. That's the end of my notes for that section.
I was muted and typing. I was like, oh my god, hurry up and type.
So, John, what about lie detectors? I mean, I mentioned polygraphs earlier on when I was talking about the fMRI studies. What about the classical lie detector with all the cables and plugs and switches and stuff?
I got I drew the straw of doing the polygraph research, and doing that, I got to watch some Penn and Teller, so that was awesome. So let's talk about polygraphs then. The machine aspect specifically. Let me restart that. Polygraphs, the machine aspect specifically, work by measuring physiological indices such as blood pressure, pulse, respiration, and skin conductivity, i.e., sweaty palms, while the subject is asked and answers questions or a series of questions. It was invented in 1921 by John Augustus Larson, a Berkeley, California medical student and police officer. The efficacy of polygraphs is widely debated in the scientific community. That's you with the fun factoid.
There's a fun factoid here about polygraphs. William Moulton Marston created Wonder Woman and her magical lasso that forces people to tell the truth. He collaborated with his wife Elizabeth, who was part of the inspiration of the character, to invent the systolic blood pressure test, which is part of the polygraph test, and he did his best to cash in on the polygraph itself. Quoting Wikipedia here, Marston set out to commercialize Larson's invention of the polygraph when he subsequently embarked on a career in entertainment and comic book writing, and appeared as a salesman in ads for Gillette razors using a polygraph motif. Some have linked the device to the lasso of truth associated with the comic book character Wonder Woman, but a direct connection is difficult to demonstrate. I don't know why that's relevant to the sentence, but okay. From his psychological work, Marston apparently became convinced that women were more honest and reliable than men and could work faster and more accurately. During his lifetime, he championed the causes of the women of the day.
So in 2001, a significant portion of the scientific community considered polygraphy to be pseudoscience. In 2002, a review by the National Academies of Science found that in populations untrained in countermeasures, polygraph testing can discriminate lying from truth-telling rates at above chance, though below perfection.
I got to cut in here. I think I wouldn't be surprised if part of the reason that polygraph tests are detecting deception is that part of the subjective interpretation involves using your natural instincts for detecting deception.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we'll have a little more on that, in fact, as we go on. So these results apply only to specific events and not to screening, where it is assumed that polygraph would work less well. So I guess it's like job screening, security screening, so on and so forth. Effectiveness may also be worsened by countermeasures, which we'll list a few of those here at the end of this.
The thing about screening is that whenever you have a test that has a false positive rate, if you just go in and randomly just question anybody and everybody about something, then you're going to get a lot of false positives.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So here's
John, how do they do a polygraph test?
So the basic procedure, The subject is given a pretest interview to gain some preliminary information, which will later be used to develop diagnostic questions. The tester explains how the polygraph is supposed to work, emphasizing that it can detect lies and it's important to answer truthfully. Then a STEM test is often conducted. The subject is asked to deliberately lie, and then the tester reports that he was able to detect the lie. This is used to make guilty subjects more anxious when they're reminded of the test's validity. The actual test starts with some irrelevant questions asked, some diagnostic questions, and the remainder are the actual relevant questions. The operator of the polygraph might make an emphasis about reaction, real or otherwise, to relevant questions. That leads into the phase where that same, quote, reaction is used to leverage more information from the subject, sometimes after the polygraph has been completed. So this is kind of what Mike was saying a second ago, where it's subjective interpretation, and a good example of this is in that Penn and Teller episode. It's season 7, episode 5. Penn and Teller's bullshit. They have a polygraph test being conducted. It's this couple that's engaged to be married, and she wants her fiance to take a test to determine whether or not he screwed around in Vegas, so on and so forth. Anyway, when
oh, sorry, go ahead.
That's all right. When the test is being conducted, the polygrapher, if you will, or the tester, will get to a question and say, "Oh, we need to go over that question again. I'm seeing a reaction here on that question." And then he'll ask the question again. They'll go on at the end of the test when it's all over. The polygraph's done. He's unhooked. Well, then he starts doing a post-test interview, and he'll be like, "Well, you had a reaction on this one question. So anything you want to tell me about that?" And he kind of tries to ferret out information. And so there, I guess part of that's like subjective interpretation, also just interrogation technique, and they go a little more into that on the show as well. So a little more about polygraphy, not to be confused with polygamy.
All
right.
Sorry, I'm ruining your joke here.
That's all right. It was a bad joke anyway.
I watched that episode of Penn and Teller myself, and I think what's interesting about the test is the similarity between the polygraph test and a cold reading from a psychic.
Mm-hmm.
Really, it seems like they're pushing information at you or trying to dig information out of you and reinterpreting things as hits rather than misses. Because like the guy you were talking about, the wife was trying to find out if he cheated on her or something. Like, that all comes up to a subjective interpretation of whether he considers seeing a stripper as cheating.
Right.
And that's the sort of thing that was he was, quote unquote, picking up as cheating.
Well, and he also used a particular term. What was it? Something like contact of a sexual nature or something like that. It wasn't. Right. He never actually said had sex
a lap
with
dance
or,
was all
right.
It needs to be.
Well, if you do it right, yeah. Anyway.
Right. Not that I have any experience with that. So polygraphy, it's widely criticized for its lack of validity. The National Research Council has found no evidence of effectiveness. Even using the high estimates of polygraph accuracy, some claim 90%, there's still a significant number of false positives occurring, and these people suffer the consequences of, quote, failing the polygraph. Sorry. In the 1998 Supreme Court...
Supreme Court, yeah.
You always lose.
Thank you, Boris.
In the 1998 Supreme Court case, United States versus Sheffer, the majority stated that, quote, there is simply no consensus that the polygraph evidence is reliable, end quote, and, quote, unlike other expert witnesses who testify about factual matters outside the juror's knowledge, such as the analysis of fingerprints, ballistics, or DNA found at a crime scene, a polygraph expert can supply the jury only with another opinion, end quote.
That's pretty harsh.
Mm-hmm. In 2005, the 11th Circuit of Appeals stated that, quote, polygraphy did not enjoy general acceptance from the scientific community, end quote. In 2003, the National Academy of Sciences issued a report. It's the polygraph and lie detection. The polygraph and lie detection. The study showed that the majority of polygraph research was, quote, unreliable, unscientific, and biased, end quote, concluding that 57 of the approximately 80 research studies that the American Polygraph Association relies on to come to their conclusions were significantly flawed. We go back just a second to that language from the 11th Circuit of Appeals Court. I'm pretty sure that general acceptance from the scientific community, I think that's a requisite for it to be allowed to be used as evidence in court cases in the U.S.
And to rely on an expert in the subject to be called an expert witness, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So one must wonder.
That's pretty damning for polygraphers.
Yeah, that's pretty terrible. This is something I don't remember when it was. It may have been the first time I saw that Penn and Teller episode, but it's been years ago that I was first introduced to the idea that polygraphs were pretty much just. I don't know if at first I would have looked at it as much as a sham, as just like these aren't very accurate and really are used more as a tool to leverage the person being interviewed.
It seems like an e-meter to me.
Yeah, it does, doesn't it? and way widely more accepted.
Yeah.
So you must be wondering if there's ways to counter the polygraph test.
I must be wondering that.
I've never had to take one, but if I ever have to take one, now I have a few tricks. So firstly, the most important thing is to understand that it's just plain ineffective. And that was stated by, there's a former polygraph expert, if you will, on that Penn and Teller episode that states that, like, first thing is to understand that it's not effective, it doesn't work. Some other means are, ask how he passed the polygraph test. Aldrich Ames, who we'll talk about more in a bit, explained that he sought advice from his Soviet handler and received the simple instruction to, quote, get a good night's sleep and rest, and go into the test rested and relax. Be nice to the polygraph examiner, develop a rapport, and be cooperative and try to maintain your calm, end quote. Additionally, Ames said, quote, there's no special magic. Confidence is what does it. Confidence in a friendly relationship with the examiner. Rapport, where you smile and you make him think that you like him. Another trick, beware of pretest. Let me restart that. Beware of pretest tricks. Polygraphers will frequently attempt to instill fear in the subject or convince the subject of the accuracy of the polygraph machine. The theory is that the more you fear, the more you may be caught. The greater your physiological reactions will be. That's something we talked about earlier, where that's the STEM test, where they say, "Oh, look, we caught you. We can tell that you're lying when you answer this question correctly."
I am physically incapable of lying.
Next, don't reveal the knowledge you have of polygraphs. Duh. Don't exhibit doubts about the effectiveness of the polygraph. This makes total sense, and this is something I would have a very hard time with. It would be so hard for me not to just be like, well, this is total bullshit we're about to do.
You know, I actually was called in for an investigation about somebody who had been like breaking into apartments in my apartment building, and the cops asked if I would take a polygraph, and I said, well, I know they're not reliable, so no. And they said, okay.
So nice. Living while black was your crime, right?
Oh.
That wasn't a stab. That.
The truth hurts. The struggle is real.
I think you're muted,
Brandy
Brady.
is muted.
Yeah.
Or not talking into the microphone. She doesn't look muted, unless she's hard muted.
Perhaps. We'll give her a second to figure that out. We'll move on. Next, answer only yes or no. Resist temptation to explain yourself or your answers or to go into details. Be courteous and cooperative, but do not offer any more information than is absolutely necessary. Next, alter breathing rate with control questions. The tester will compare your physiological responses to control questions to your responses to relevant questions. If the deviation from normal during control questions exceeds the deviation from normal during relevant questions, you will pass. That is a confusing sentence I typed up there. If you react more to a relevant question than to control questions, the tester will perceive that as deception. Then it's all rubber hoses, dog collars, and waterboarding for you, sucker.
Guantanamo.
After the test, the polygrapher will claim to, quote, know that you are lying about something. This is a trick. Remain calm and firmly but politely repeat your denial. Don't change or argue your answer, and decline extended post-test interviewing if possible.
Was this the episode of Penn and Teller where they talked about how you can also help fight it by clenching your butthole?
Yes, they had the
the sphincter method.
The smart asshole method.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I don't know. I would say more than anything here, the best defense against polygraph is don't take one if you don't have to. Don't ever just, oh, sure, I'll take one. Just tell them, yeah, I'm not going to take that because it's total crap. You know,
Or lie about every single question.
You might be a little more diplomatic than that, but that's pretty much what I'd say.
Sarcastic responses.
Yeah.
Did you kill your wife? Oh, yeah, I killed my wife.
I totally killed my wife. Yeah. You're going to jail. Wait, no, I was just kidding.
A lie detector easily like that, then just say, offer to take it. It'll make you look innocent.
Yeah, that's I think there's a lot of discussion we could have about that. That's the thing. Like, if you had nothing to lie, why, or if you had nothing to hide, why would you not be okay with me searching your car, or your house, or your whatever? Yeah. Well, because fuck you. That's why.
Are you going to use your magical seer stones to test me?
No, the e-meter. Duh. They measure your body thetan response to questions. And
you're going to douse me for lying?
Dousing. If you lie, the dousing sticks smack you upside the head.
Why don't you use a Ouija board and ask the spirits about it?
So, someone I mentioned a minute ago was Alder James. So here's a few examples of deception, some more famous than others, I guess. Alder James was one of the most famous U.S. spies in history. He's a former Central Intelligence Agency counterintelligence officer and analyst who in 1994 was convicted of spying for the Soviet Union and Russia. Motivated by mounting financial pressure due to a divorce and a new financially demanding relationship, Ames began to consider spying for the Soviets. He had just recently been placed in the Department of Operations, which was responsible for Soviet counterintelligence. This gave him access to all CIA plans and operations against KGB and the GRU, which is Soviet intelligence. Yeah. In 1985, Ames provided information to the Soviets that he believed was, quote, essentially valueless, end quote, but that would establish his credentials as a CIA insider. He also asked for $50,000, which the Soviets quickly paid. Ames received around $2.5 million in total throughout his spying career. His extravagant spending initially drew attention and suspicion to himself. Along that line, he apparently had a record of his performance going up and down quite a bit. Sometimes he did all right, other times his performance was really poor, and his coworkers would, I guess, make note of his poor performance. That never drew attention to him, but the money did. So spending, which included a $540,000 house, $50,000 Jaguar, home remodeling totaling near $99,000, monthly phone bills exceeding $6,000.
That's not suspicious at all.
Well, this was actually
that's just not smart.
Well, actually, the thing about that, which those calls were quasi-legitimate, his wife was calling her family in, I want to say it was Colombia, I don't remember, but she was from outside the U.S., so she was making long-distance calls. This is back in the day when long-distance calls was all
really expensive.
However many cents or dollars per minute. Also tailored suits, which stood out amongst his colleagues who normally would wear kind of, bargain basement style clothes. And credit card bills that exceeded his monthly salary. That's a big one. Your credit card bill alone costs more than what you make in a month. You might be obvious. So
I've had that problem in the past, though.
Yeah.
One too many benders. So when the FBI was doing surveillance on him before they busted him, this is a little tidbit, during one surveillance operation, after Ames had left his house, agents pulled up to his curb in a van, took his trash can, replaced it with another trash can that was identical, went through that trash in a different location, found some bits of notes related to secret meetings and communications with his handler, and then returned the original trash can before Ames arrived back home.
Wow. Yeah, he was not too bright.
I absolutely recommend reading about how he was caught. It was a really neat story.
Hey, I'm a brilliant spy. I'm going to leave my notes about secret meetings with foreign governments in my fucking trash.
He wasn't that brilliant, and in fact, they said one of the things that made him seem suspicious was he wasn't a very industrious fella. So when he got up at 6 o'clock in the morning in a hurry to go somewhere, to be somewhere to do something, people that were watching him thought, yeah, that's suspicious because that's just out of character for him.
Yeah, slightly.
Yeah. So ultimately, he was sentenced to life imprisonment, and his second wife was sentenced to a lesser sentence.
Guilty by reason of stupidity.
Yeah, something of that nature. Through information obtained by the Soviet Union through Ames, many agents were compromised, and from what I can tell, that means that all, or most at least, were tried and executed in the Soviet Union.
He kept. Oh, obtained by the Soviet Union. Oh, wow. They got our guys.
Right,
I
so
thought it was the other way around.
Well, I guess generally it was Soviet. At least the ones I read about were Soviet citizens that were spying for the U.S.
Right.
And so he would give up
Sleeper
those
agents.
names, and then they were, then one of them, in fact, who our next guy will talk about as well, one of them had spent over 20 years spying for the U.S. and actually became a general in the Army. And then after he had retired, I want to say 5 or 6 years after he retired, he was exposed and tried and executed.
A general of the Soviet army?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Huh.
So I'm not sure how many people were compromised, but it's considered only second to our next spy, Robert Philip Hansen.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's a former Federal Bureau of Investigation agent who spied for the Soviet and Russian intelligence services against the U.S. for 22 years, from 1979 to 2001. Hansen was nearly exposed in 1981 when his wife Bonnie caught him in their basement writing a letter to the Soviets. Hansen admitted her that he was giving information to the Soviets, but stated it was false information. He deceived her. Huh? Nothing?
So are you saying he lied?
He lied. And for
No
that
one-
supposed and for that instance of supposed false information, he was paid $30,000. In 1987, Hansen was tasked with making a study of all known and rumored penetrations of the FBI in order to find the man who betrayed some KGB double agents in 1985. As he had been one of the 2 agents to expose them, Ames being the other, he was in effect tasked with ferreting himself out. So Hansen, he was moved from department to department in the FBI for many, many years that almost all of it either had to do with Soviet intelligence or finding the guy that was giving up intelligence. And he got away with it for a very long time. Hansen was finally suspected when, after a 2-year investigation of the wrong man, Brian Kelly, which that's an interesting story to look into, quote, the FBI decided on a new tactic, buying the moles. Oh, this. By the way, let me restart that.
Who are we quoting here?
Yeah, that's what I was going to do.
Okay.
Where was that quote from? Oh shit. I'll just read it as it is. It's in the notes as a quote. I've lost my place. I'll restart that sentence. In 3,
Currently
2.
Googling.
There we go. 1.
That came from the Robert Hansen Wikipedia page.
Oh, okay. Hansen was finally suspected when, after a 2-year investigation of the wrong man, Brian Kelly, which, by the way, is a fantastic story. It's very interesting to read about that. From Wikipedia, quote, the FBI decided on a new tactic, buying the mole's identity. They searched for the possible candidates to buy off and found one, a Russian businessman and former KGB agent whose identity remains classified to this day. An American company cooperated by inviting him to the United States for a business meeting. After his arrival in New York City, the FBI offered him a large sum of money if he would give the name of the mole. The Russian responded that he did not know the name, but that he could get the actual KGB/SVR file regarding the mole. He managed to steal the file from SVR headquarters. The file covered the mole's correspondence with the KGB from 1985 to 1991. The FBI agreed to pay $7 million U.S. for the file and set up the KGB officer and his family with new identities in the U.S. In November 2000, the FBI finally obtained the file, consisting of a package the size of a medium-sized suitcase. Among the host of documents and computer disk was an audio tape of a July 21st, 1986 conversation between the mole and a KGB agent.
Ruh-roh.
Yeah. When the FBI listened to the tape, they expected to hear the voice of Kelly, still the prime suspect. However, the voice on the recording was definitely not Kelly. FBI agent Michael Wegspack, I think is how it's pronounced, listening to the tape, recognized the voice as familiar but could not remember who it was. Rifling through the rest of the file, they found notes of the mole using a quote from General George S. Patton about, quote, the purple-pissing Japanese. Wegspack listened to... Oh, sorry. FBI analyst Bob King remembered Robert Hansen using the same quote. Wegspack listened to the tape again and recognized it as the voice of Robert Hansen. That's end quote. After that, the investigation pretty much just fell into line pretty quickly. Shortly after that, Hansen was arrested, pled guilty on July 6, 2001 to 15 counts of espionage in the United States District Court for the Eastern District of Virginia, and was subsequently sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. His activities have been described by the U.S. Department of Justice's Commission for the Review of FBI Security Programs as, quote, possibly the worst intelligence disaster in U.S. history, end quote. And he is considered to have compromised more U.S. intelligence assets, read that as spies, than any other spy in history, or at least known until now, yeah.
I think it's a common misunderstanding that spies are people who are like a James Bond that come from like England and go to, let's say, Soviet Russia and spy on things. But the actual spies that are doing the legwork are local people, because you can never go for a local person if you're a foreigner. You just can't. So.
Brandy is saying something, but we can't hear what she's saying.
Let's pause here for a second. I'll see if we can get her working. Hang on one sec.
Yeah. Technical difficulties. We're having technical difficulties. Stick with us, live audience. We love you. Do. Technical difficulties. We have technical difficulties. Things are technically difficult, and it's difficult to be technical.
Tell me lies, tell me sweet little lies.
Come on, tell me lies.
Tell me lies, tell me sweet little lies.
Sing to me, Earl. Sing to me with that beautiful, melodious Finnish voice.
Sing once again with me. Our strange duet. My power over you grows stronger yet.
Hey, I hear Brandy.
Oh, okay, good. Now they hear me. John just had to do chant some Latin and show me his tits real quick. I don't know what happened. Almost better now.
Actually, I just played a clip of Erno doing the exorcism, and it worked. It was fine.
I was asking, Erno, you're local and foreign. Does that make you a spy? I'm suspicious.
Got any documents you want to sell me, buddy?
What kind of documents do you want? I have documentation for my dog and my...
I would like some government gay documents day.
He did study paper, which could be code for, documents.
Yes, but paper is like one of the main exports of Finland, along with sadness and stern-looking Finnish people.
And snow. Did they sell that? They would make a fortune selling
gnomes.
Snow. They sell gnomes. They do indeed. My mom has one. In the garden.
Sweet.
So back on the subject here. The 2007 movie Breach. Volume went crazy on me. The 2007 movie Breach is based on the whole Robert Hansen story. The whole Robert Hansen story, and it's great. It's a great movie. You should watch it.
I don't have it in the notes, but there's also a book that was based on that whole story that I read once. That was pretty impressive. So Erno was saying a second ago that about spies, people sometimes have an idea that spies are like super agents you see in movies, and in fact they're not. No, often they're just intelligence analysts or clerks somewhere that have access to information, and
not to mention fat people over at consulates and
embassies. And often that one thing I've found, I've researched a bunch of different spies for the show, and I've narrowed it down to those two. But one very common thread with almost all of them was that they're under some kind of financial strain, and so they say, "Oh, I could sell information to get out from under this, get some money from whoever." Hansen, in fact, said money was his motivation, but he wasn't apparently under any strain. He just wanted more money. Ames, however, was going under financially, and so he decided he'd get top right again by selling information. That's pretty common.
But it seemed to pay well, especially for Hansen.
Well, no, actually, if you look, Hansen made $1.8 million in total, whereas Ames made $2.5. And Ames didn't spy for near as long as Hansen did. I'd say, however it worked out, Ames got a better deal out of that, so to speak, financially anyway. So
I
next,
don't remember. I don't remember who the person is, and I'm not sure if this is someone we're going to cover. But there was when I was working for a government research agency, which I don't know if I should name it or not. That one of the stories they told us in our counterintelligence briefings to warn us about things to watch out for if we might suspect some of our coworkers of selling documents to foreign countries. There was a story about a guy who literally walked out of a government office with pallets of documents. Like literally a pallet of like briefcases full of documents and books and things like that. He walked out and
just
sold it
over
off to the
time, he took
Russians.
a little bit at a
No,
time.
he literally took a pallet, loaded it up with books and documents, and walked out with it.
Oh,
like
I see.
Wow.
like a something for a grocery store that they bring groceries in on. It's stacked, probably
I
6
gotcha.
feet high, probably several hundred cubic feet of documents, and got
You
away
can
with
get-
it.
you
for
I
can
like a
wonder
year.
if
get away with a lot if you just look confident and like you're supposed to be
Like
doing
you're
what you do.
supposed to be.
Yeah.
It's like
Yeah,
those
yeah.
people that
This
take big
reminds me-
plasma TVs from Best Buy or whatever. They just walk out the front door with these big, ridiculous items.
Right.
That reminds me of an anecdote, not spying related, but many, many years ago, I had worked in this one warehouse for this company, and then I went to work for a different sister company. And I needed to go back to the original company for something in their warehouse. I don't remember what it was, but it was a real pain in the butt to get through there if you went through the regular security. So you had to have the right badge and everything. And it just occurred to me one day, it's like, if I just walk through here and look like I know what I'm doing, no one will bother me. So I did. I just walked in there like I know where I'm headed. I had a serious look on my face, and I'm walking in a hurry, and nobody said a word to me. I had the wrong badge on. I'm in the wrong part of the warehouse. And I think, in a similar vein, that's the thing. If you look like you know what you're doing, and especially if you already have some kind of clearance, you've got some time in there, so you have some level of trust. Often, people just aren't going to ask you questions. That's the weakest link in security is other people.
Always. Social engineering. Yeah.
Yeah, you call someone and talk them out of security clearance for something pretty easily just by being confident.
Didn't I just do this yesterday with eBay or day before yesterday? No, I didn't do anything shady or terrible. It's just a matter of like, I called eBay and was able to get through to my account when I really shouldn't have been able to. So
Oh yeah.
that was nice. I appreciate their help though. I'm not trying to rat them out. I'm saying like, good on them.
Right.
It's a mess. But anyway.
So John, who's this Frédéric Baudin character?
So you may have heard of him and not know his name. He's a 23-year-old Frenchman who was known for having several aliases who were those of teenage runaways and orphans. There's a story on Slate.com about him, although there's many, many elsewhere. But to quote Slate, according to Bourdain, the plan came to him in the middle of the night. If he could fool the judge into thinking that he was an American, he might be let go. He asked for permission to use the telephone in the shelter's office and called the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children in Alexandria, Virginia, trolling for a real identity, speaking in English, which he had picked up during his travels. He claimed that his name was Jonathan Durian and that he was the director of the Linares shelter. He said that a frightened child had turned up who would not disclose his identity, but who spoke English with an American accent. Bourdain offered a description of the boy that matched himself: short, slight, prominent chin, brown hair, a gap between his teeth, and asked if the center had anyone similar in its database. After searching, Bourdain recalls a woman at the center said that the boy might be Nicholas Barkley, who had been reported missing in San Antonio on June 13, 1994, at the age of 13. Barkley was last seen, according to his file, wearing a white t-shirt, purple pants, black tennis shoes, and carrying a pink backpack. So a fictionalized account of the Nicholas Barkley case was brought to theaters under the title The Chameleon in 2010, and in 2012, a documentary titled The Imposter was released about Bourdain's impersonation of Nicholas Barkley. It is a freaky, fascinating story. There's also a number of podcasts that have talked about this whole case in one version or another. I think there was one recently on Snap Judgment, I believe. And maybe one on This American Life. I don't remember. I've heard about this in many, many places. It's a very interesting story, and there's a kind of mystery sort of in this about possibly a murder cover-up that I'm not going to talk about, so people can find out on their own. You can watch the movie or read about it and learn about that on your own. And next we have Christian Karl Gerhartsreiter. That's as close as I'm going to get to that.
Sit tight.
Yeah. He's a German man who moved to the U.S. in 1979 in hopes of getting a job as an actor. After skipping out on a wedding day and heading towards California, he became Clark Rockefeller, the faux multimillionaire social butterfly who spent the next 2 decades from around 1985 to 2006 claiming to be a member of the illustrious Rockefeller family. The plan worked well until his wife of 11 years began to get suspicious that he was not, in fact, a Rockefeller. She was on
How the fuck does that happen?
So for 11 years, the couple had been living exclusively on her income the entire time while Clark pursued high-profile social connections. In 2006, his wife discovered the lie. I guess she woke up one day and had coffee and cleared her head. I don't know.
I've been paying for everything, and this guy says he's a Rockefeller. This doesn't make any fucking sense at all.
So she discovers the lie, files for divorce, and leaves. And 2 years later, in 2008, Clark was arrested for kidnapping his daughter in Boston, and the investigation discovered that he also murdered a guy, and possibly that same guy's wife.
What the fuck?
He was known as one of 2 people who have impersonated a Rockefeller, and we won't go into the other one for this show. I thought this was the more interesting of the 2.
Fuck this. I'm not going to impersonate a Rockefeller. I'm going to impersonate a Christ. There we go. Hi, I'm Mike Christ. Nice to meet you.
Hello, Christ.
Oh, Christ. Yes?
Jesus.
Oh, he's my brother.
Or he's you and he's your brother at the same time.
It's mysterious. It's a mystery how that works.
So to go back to lie detectors for just a minute. Aldrich Ames passed twice in investigations, passed lie detector tests fairly easily, and I think Hansen did as well, although I don't remember the number. I did not include that in the notes. I don't know, maybe they should have tried something like a truth serum. Is that a thing, or is that just like a literary device? I don't know.
Aaron, what do you know about truth serums?
What do you know?
I know all kinds of things about truth serums. Like that.
Vodka doesn't count.
Oh, come on.
There's a drug they use that's called a truth serum. I think what is it, sodium pentothal or something?
Yeah, and I'm going to get to that eventually.
Let the Finn speak.
Yeah, let me speak, you damn dirty ape. Yeah, so it's not quite what we see in the spy movies. Yes, there are things that you can use and drug someone to tell the truth. But, of course, if they don't know the truth, they're going to tell what they expect the truth to be. And yeah, he's not, him or her, whoever you're going to use it on, he's not going to be all that clear-minded. So, in Hollywood movies, it's a plot device. And you just kind of inject someone and he's going to tell everything he knows about something you're going to ask about. Let's say, did you murder this guy? And do you have the file you're looking for?
Yeah,
and he'll tell. Yeah, but in reality, it would be something like, yeah, man, I think I know what you mean. It might be like in the dark I used to wear. Yeah, so that's it. But they are chemical compounds. They exist, and intelligence agencies use them, or at least have historically used them. So, actually, there's a proposition that in vino veritas, which is the saying from ancient Greece or Rome, that actually means that it means in wine the truth. So it might actually be an example of early use of wine as a truth serum. But
so the Romans waterboarded people with wine. People. Gotcha.
Yeah.
No, they can only waterboard Jesus with wine. They use water, and it kind of turns into wine as they go.
Yeah, but the truth serums. But the truth serums I'm going to talk about now are basically barbiturates. They affect the central nervous system, and yeah, they are the typical things that people consider a truth serum.
My understanding of it is that it's not like it compels you to tell the truth. If you know what's going on, and you're able to keep your wits about you, you should be able to withstand them and not give away secrets if you don't want to.
Yeah, it's like you're kind of high out of your mind, but you can still have certain. You can take certain steps to let's say not know the truth or have a lie ready, and you're just going to tell the lie. So the typical compounds that are used as truth serums, barbiturates, are scopolamine. I suppose that's how you pronounce it. These are insane.
Scopolamine. Yeah.
So it's better known as a date rape drug because it makes you lose your memories prior to giving of this drug, and it has some legit uses besides being a truth serum, so to say.
And a hookup drug.
Yeah. And these uses include easing nausea, vomiting, and motion sickness. And the best known spy drug, spy truth serum, is of course sodium thiopental, which goes by the trade name sodium pentothal. So it's the one they use in pretty much every spy movie. I don't think I've ever seen anything. Has anyone else seen anything else used?
No,
No, but
really.
I was gonna mention I recently read by James Elroy, The Black Dahlia, and there's a scene in there where one of the detectives injects another officer with sodium pentothal as a truth serum, and of course it works. It's a fictionalized version of that story, and it works just fine. It was interesting. Great book, by the way.
One of the sources claimed that it might be the most effective one, but I'm not going to bet on that one because we don't know what secret or secretive compounds people are using to coerce the truth out of people.
Sure.
Yeah, but it's mentioned that it's pretty effective because it gets you high up your mind. And then there was amobarbital, or sodium amythal, I think it's maybe something like that. I didn't find much on it, but I know that the legitimate uses are insomnia, anxiety, and epilepsy. So you can pretty much see from the legit uses that these are some kind of psychoactives.
Oh yeah, definitely. These aren't just some placebo thing. There's definitely some chemical, some biological effect going on.
Yeah, since the U.S. is kind of a democracy and they have a tradition of having information available.
Kind of a democracy.
Yeah. So pretty much CIA was the only one I could find corroborated evidence of use of things for truth serums, and they had so the technical term for truth serum is narcoanalytics. So that would be analyzing something when they're under a narcotic substance. And I found that in the CIA's MK Ultra, which is I think loved by many of the conspiracy theory nuts, right? They love MK Ultra. Yeah, I found that they used some kind of a cannabis derivative and a LSD derivative to try and figure out if they could be used, and at least the divulged results were that they were bad at doing it with these substances, but they've also used the traditional pentatols and such. So my claim would be, this is from me and me alone, that theoretically any substance that alters one's thought processes is a possible truth serum. Because I mean, if you're in a talkative mood after like taking alcohol or cannabis or whatever, you're more likely to divulge information that you're kind of not supposed to. So any substance that makes you go haywire is possible.
Especially like alcohol, something that lowers your inhibitions and makes you talk more freely. Yeah.
Yep. So, where did this all begin? The whole business starts from a guy who is Dr. House MD, and I'm not making this shit up. He's actually Dr. House.
Everybody lies.
Yeah. So, Robert Ernest House was an obstetrician.
Robert in the house.
Who in the 1920s noticed that women who had received a mixture of drugs at a certain dosage that included morphine, chloroform, and scopolamine seemed to open up about their lives. They were high out of their minds, and they just kept telling him stuff. And from there he reached the conclusion, without making any further studies, that yeah, it's probable that the women were not only more candid, but they were also truthful and not telling lies. I don't know how he came to that, but I suppose the things that ladies were telling them about were so secretive that he was like, yeah, it's probably true. Yeah, it was in the 1920s, so it was like, once I let a man see my feet or something.
My ankles.
And he kept going at it until he died in the 1930s, and he provided his services of, yeah, I can make people tell the truth in the court system in the US. And this is the end of the story. Well, not really. So, police officials and other instances that need to interrogate people who don't necessarily want to divulge everything used the same drugs until a Supreme Court decision in 1963 that confessions received under the influence of these drugs are not valid evidence. So, this is the end. Not really. Yeah.
Whoa.
So
liar.
So in 2012, there is still talk of using some kind of truth serum. They didn't divulge in the news story what it was, but they want to determine if the Aurora Theater shooter or the Batman shooter, he comes with many names. Yeah, they want to know if his plea for insanity is actually true, and they're going to, I suppose they are going to feed him these drugs, and the judge has approved of this method, so
the Supreme Court decided that you can't get a confession from serums, but apparently you can determine whether or not somebody is actually telling the truth about being crazy by using them.
Yeah,
that seems shady.
Yeah, that's kind of shady, but the judge has approved it, and I think he might be complaining, the shooter, that is, if he thinks.
Imagine if he gets a mistrial because of something like that.
Yeah, but it has been approved.
A mistrial doesn't prevent you from being tried again, though, does it?
Double jeopardy, yes, yeah.
Well, mistrial isn't.
I don't know. Actually, I don't know. Yeah.
Mistrial is not being declared not guilty, though. It's just a mistrial.
Right.
I think after a mistrial, he could be tried again. So I mean, it would prolong the procedure, but I don't think it would be an end to it.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, and the Supreme Court decision, I don't think I wrote it down here, but it's called Townshend versus something, so you can look that up. It was in 1963. So, are they effective? As I've said many times before, yes and no. So, there's anecdotal evidence that at least alcohol works. In a book called Nazi POVs in Tar Heel State.
What?
Yeah, it's the name of the book. Nazi POVs in Tar Heel State. So it's a book by Robert D. Bellinger Jr., and it pretty much describes a method where prison guards would put the Nazi prisoners, especially high-ranking officers, in a nice, comfortable environment, playing pool and chess with them.
I have to comment here. So it's funny that I've noticed sometimes you pronounce W's as V's, but you actually just said POV. It's POW.
Oh, POW, of course. Yeah. Sorry. My native tongue doesn't make a distinction between W and yeah. Okay, so POWs. My bad. Yeah, so they put them in comfortable settings and befriended the officers, the prison guards did, and then they offered them alcohol, and they would confide in them much in the same way as you would confide in your friend when you're drunk. So they pretty much would divulge something that would be considered state secrets. It's an interesting story.
This reminds me of a story I heard in a podcast once. There's a guy who had a book coming out about...
Skeptics podcast?
No, I wish. This was a guy was talking about a book he had coming out, which was about the most successful Nazi interrogator during World War II. And what he was talking about was the methods this guy used to interrogate. There were no torture methods or drugs used, maybe alcohol, but no injections of anything. And it was just a story about how this guy would basically build rapport with the POWs, and through that he'd gain some useful information. And he pushed really hard to end torture there in the Nazi regime because he saw it as completely ineffective. And as you hear 1,000 times, eventually someone will tell you whatever it is you want to hear to make the torture stop.
Yeah.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Building rapport was what pretty much the whole book was about. So, yeah.
Give me a few cocktails, and I call that building rapport.
Yeah. So
Have a drink with a Nazi.
So this is my conclusion again. I didn't take this from anywhere. So if you want to garner good information, you have to do the legwork. There's no miracle drug that can induce truth telling. So kind of. Yeah, go ahead.
Just gonna say, who actually uses truth serums?
Oh, segue magic. So, yeah, as I said, without a doubt, most intelligence agencies use this because they're probably, if you have someone who's not very well known, you can probably use these kind of things on them. Because, I mean, prisoners in Guantanamo Bay, how many of you can name even one?
Billy.
So they're there, and
I can name
Muhammad.
Well, you think Khalid Sheikh Mohammed's kept there? Is he not?
I think Muhammad is a safe bet.
Yeah, but no one is really looking for these guys, or maybe they are,
Yeah.
but yeah, you can use drugs on these people. Pretty much no one will ever hear about it except maybe years and years later when the records are made public. So pretty much every intelligence agency in the world probably uses on shady cases can use these drugs. Huh. Looks like
It's
there's
funny
a list.
because it's a human rights violation.
775 on this particular list I just found of detainees in Guantanamo.
Jesus, seriously?
Most have been released without charge. But yeah, there's.
Yeah. So
I did not
there's
realize there were that many. Oh wow.
So there's a well-known case in India. It's a Muslim terrorist. Well, what do you know? A Muslim who bombed something.
Oh. Send hate mail to feedback at irreverentskeptics.com.
Yeah. So this guy, I didn't want to learn his name because it was so hard. So I just called him a Pakistani terrorist.
Oh, Jesus, again, send your feedback at irreverentskeptics.com.
Was there a Muhammad somewhere in there? Or Ibn or Al?
Well, you can read it from Wikipedia because that's where this is from. So, the Indian Central Bureau of Investigations (CBI) used truth serums against this terrorist. That was the only one captured from an attack that happened in Mumbai in 2008, and due to his confessions under these drugs, at least partly, he was sentenced to death in 2010. Yeah. And then there's a Russian special mix. It's called SP Special Preparat 117, and
Wait, that was easy enough to pronounce, but the Pakistani terrorist name was not easy enough to pronounce.
Yeah. So Special Preparat 117 is described as follows: it has no taste, no color, or smell.
Made with 11 secret herbs and spices.
And could be easily placed in someone's drink. Afterwards, having a heart-to-heart talk with the interrogator, the victim is said to have no memory of the event, which makes it more useful drugs. Yeah, I have written something that makes no sense, but yeah, that makes it a drug that is the closest to anything that the fictional spy novels or movies have.
You said it has no taste, color, or smell, and I thought, oh, it's iocane powder.
Is it in my cup or yours?
Inconceivable.
Yeah, but it's a state secret, and it has only been claimed that it has been used against political dissidents and defectors. So basically, if you're an opposition politician in Russia, you might be treated with this if they take you in. But
never go in against a Russian when death is on the line.
That ain't no shit.
Yeah, and reportedly it was used against someone who was in a secret Russian chemical warfare research institute, and he was defecting from that project, and it was used to find out who was making him basically defect. So, but yeah, of course, these are claims by people who have been mistreated, so they would have an incentive to come up with something to blame on the government, I suppose.
If Vladimir Putin's abs of power don't get you, his secret police will.
Yeah, but I couldn't find anything on the chemical composition or anything of the SP-117, so it's
Herbs
kind
and
of a
spices,
semi-myth.
So
I know the secret, but I'll never tell.
Liar.
Unless you are under the truth serum.
Have a drink here, buddy.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah.
Have a drink
Hey,
here,
John.
some scopolamine. I might be asking for the truth, or huh?
So we have talked a lot about people lying, how we detect people lying, people who've been caught in lies, but how about the rest of the world? Does anything else in nature kind of try to deceive?
Does it? Oh man. So just a little bit of research revealed that we could probably do a month's worth of podcast about deception in nature. So I had to water this way down to just a few things. There was an American invertebrate zoologist and photographer named Robert W. Mitchell, and professor of psychology and biology Nicholas S. Thompson, who had a book specifically about deception in nature, where they described 4 levels of deception in animals. And the first is false markings, such as butterfly markings that indicate their heads are at the back end of their bodies to help them escape, or markings to make predators attempt to look safe. A few examples of that. One of my favorites is the snakehead moth.
Yeah.
Yeah, and an interesting thing about that, it has no mouth. It has all the nutrients it needs for its short lifespan when it emerges from the chrysalis.
What?
Yeah, and so it has all the nutrients it needs. It doesn't eat anything for its lifespan. Anyway, so it has markings on its body and wings that somewhat resemble the head of a snake, and that's for protection from predators. There's a type of mimicry called Mullerian mimicry. I'm sure I just hosed that entirely.
No, you
That's when
nailed it. You nailed it. That's exactly how it sounds.
Oh yeah. That's when a non-venomous species mimics markings of a poisonous species. An example of that is mantella frogs of Madagascar, which are similarly colored to South American poison dart frogs, and so predators won't. What's that?
What?
I should not have looked at the notes then. That sidetracked me.
So, yeah. What about the killdeer?
So we'll get to that. So next is red milk snakes. Those are harmless snakes, and they have markings very similar to coral snakes, which are venomous and deadly.
Wait, was the milk snake the thing that you found in Pennsylvania here, right outside of Pittsburgh?
Yeah, that was a type of milk snake. This is one that has red, black, and yellow rings, and depending on how they're arranged, it either means, oh, this is harmless, or, oh, this thing will freaking kill you.
But and just as a side note, if your milk is red, don't drink it.
Yeah, don't drink it. And especially if it's raw milk, because raw milk, yeah, Google that first, don't drink it. That milk snake you found, though, wasn't it pretending to be, wasn't it trying to deceive you like, oh, well, I'm not saying I'm a rattlesnake, but I might be.
I don't know if that was the milk snake or the rat snake. I think that was the black rat snake.
Yeah, that's what it was, but it was deceiving you, too, or attempting to plant it. Yeah, I might be dangerous.
It'll rattle its tail, so to speak, against brush and leaves to simulate a rattling noise. Yeah.
But it doesn't have a rattle, but it'll create the idea in your mind, like maybe, and it's worth backing away just in case.
Yeah,
the rattlesnake's near here.
It looks like and sounds enough like a rattle that it will at least give you pause.
Mm-hmm.
So that falls into our next category, which is false behavior, which is predators acting in a way to hide its predatory nature, or I guess the opposite of that, acting in a manner to counter predatory nature. Anyway, one example of that is the anglerfish. It uses a form of aggressive mimicry to deceive its prey. It has an appendage that actually is luminous and will attract small fish, and when it gets close enough, the anglerfish will snatch it. Yeah.
Oh, is that the fish that opens its mouth and the tongue, essentially, is what looks like a worm or whatever, and then the fish... It looks like a worm.
I think the luminous thing hangs off the front of their head.
Yeah, this hangs out. You may be thinking of the frogmouth catfish. Has a tongue extension that lures
That's what I'm thinking of. The tongue is the bait, and it's amazing. It sits there and does that by the hour until something.
And that's not the only fish like that, but that's an example. Then another example of aggressive mimicry is where males are lured toward what would seem to be a sexually receptive female, only to be eaten.
That's how we met, yeah?
Yeah.
Is that how we met? Yeah.
Wow. Studies on female fireflies of the genus Photurus revealed they emit the same light signals that females of the genus Photinus use as a mating signal. Further research showed that male fireflies from several different genera are attracted to these femme fatales and are subsequently captured and eaten. Female signals are based on that received from the male, each female having a repertoire of signals matching the delay and duration of the female of the corresponding species.
Crickets?
Hang on. There's notes being added.
Well, the thing is, I don't even look at the notes before or now.
Another example of this is species Rogerus eleatus.
Yes, it's a passive. The males of the species are passive and pretend to be perfect gentlemen, but then when they're pushed over the edge, they do drive-bys.
So the third type of behavior is feigned injury to get or divert attentions. For example, a parent bird feigning a broken wing to attract a predator away from its defenseless offspring. Brandy and I have seen in person an example of this with killdeer. It's a type of bird that, as you approach its nest, first it makes a bunch of noise to get your attention, and then it will feign having a broken wing and kind of hobbles off.
And it will kill a deer?
No, this is the ridiculous thing. So apparently it got its name from its call.
Killdeer,
which doesn't sound anything. I'm like.
It sounds like squawk, squawk. I kill you. That's what it sounds like. Squawk, squawk.
So one thing it does this thing where it will draw you away by pretending it has a broken wing. But also the first time we ran across one, so we're walking towards the nest and it runs away from it, but that puts the nest between us and it. And as we got closer to the nest, it realized, oh, they're going towards the nest, not away from it. So it turned around and charged us instead.
Yeah, it went from faking a broken wing, like, oh no, like 30 seconds of fake broken wing. Oh no, look at it's all disjointed. It looked very, very believable, and it was screaming and broken wing, and then
I think its chest or shoulders had red on it as well, which I imagine is to add to the puffed up effect. I'm not sure.
That part I don't remember, but I know when it finally said, okay, no more broken wing, you're too close to my babies, it turned around and it puffed up, like it not just charged us, but puffed up, trying to appear larger. And I just thought, if you'd have stuck with the broken wing thing a little longer, it would have been more convincing. But yeah.
So also feigning death is common as well. A wide range of animals such as lizards, birds, rodents, and sharks behave as if to appear dead, usually as a defensive method of avoiding predation, as predators will usually take only live prey. There's a species of snake that will turn over, flatten itself, stop breathing, and even spit up blood and poo. It'll poop and spit up blood to feign being dead. Then you leave it alone for a little while, and it gets up and does its thing.
That's where I just read about that somewhere.
Yeah, that was on TV or on an internet clip I saw recently. Does the thing that's loose in Florida now, that's taken over Florida, doesn't that do that? Like defecate if you is it the boa?
The Burmese python.
Oh, python.
It doesn't feign death, but yeah.
No, but you pick it up in
defensive,
it.
Yeah, defensive measure.
Snake?
No, the thing in Florida that's taken over.
I know the hognose is the one that will spit blood. Yeah.
That would be terrifying.
She's talking about the Burmese. Yeah, it will. That's called musking. It will poo and release this god awful smell.
Yeah.
Actually, a lot of snakes do that as a defense.
I saw that footage that they were trying to wrangle these snakes in Florida, and the guy's like, "Oh, be careful," because they startled it and it lunged and whatever, and the next thing you know, this guy's just covered in raw sewage. It was just terrible.
So speaking of femme fatales, the nursery web spider male will feign death to avoid being eaten by females during mating. I've had to do that a few times, I know.
The painter spider's mate wishes he had thought of that, but what he does is build an escape web. So he's like, "I'm out, bitches." Like, yeah.
Yeah, we have a particular type of orb weaver here. It goes by a bunch of different names. One of them is painter spider. The other is garden spider, and I've heard some people call it a banana spider, although I don't know if that's correct or not. But yeah, and the male will construct its own little escape thread, and like right after mating will be like, "Well, I'm out," and it'll run before it gets eaten.
So I think one thing we haven't talked about here yet is
verbal deception.
The garter snake.
Oh yeah.
Big garter snake.
As we all know, garter snakes are these little timid-looking little snakes that pretend to be harmless, and really they're behind the Illuminati and the New World Order. The reptilian people are causing global warming to raise the world temperature to make life more suitable for the new garter snake overlords. It's just facts, people.
And for more information,
do they use verbal?
Among other things.
They are PR mavens. I mean, they're good with the social media, much like ISIS. They're like that. Like, they do a lot of tweets.
You people know that the snake in the Garden of Eden was a garter snake.
Garter snake, yeah. Very few people know that. Good call.
It's actually a mistranslation. It was actually the garden snake is where it came from.
That's right.
For more information on this, by the way, do listen to the episodes of A Skeptic's Guide to Conspiracy about constructing a conspiracy.
There we go.
So yeah, verbal deception.
Facts about big garter snake.
That's right. Verbal deception, such as chimps misleading other chimps to hide a food source, or a human lying in order to deceive another, which we've done enough of that already, so we won't cover that. So here's a couple of examples of verbal deception. Several great apes have been trained to use sign language, and in some instances have apparently used this to attempt to deceive human observers. Coco, a female gorilla, was trained to use a form of American Sign Language. This is so awesome. It has been claimed that she once tore a steel sink out of its moorings, and when her handlers confronted her, Coco signed, "Cat did it," and pointed at her innocent pet kitten.
Man, watch out for that.
That's fucking badass.
I love that.
Keep an eye out for that fucking cat.
The dog ate my homework.
The tufted capuchin.
Right.
It's a monkey. Tufted capuchin monkey subordinates have been found to employ a vocal form of tactical deception when competing with dominant monkeys over valuable food resources. They use alarm calls normally reserved for predator sightings, either barks used specifically for aerial stimuli, peeps, or hiccups to elicit a response from fellow group members, and then take advantage of the distraction to pilfer food.
You do that same thing, do you not? Do you not?
Oh, there's a rapist in the house.
Oh God,
Peanut butter.
Sometimes I'm like, oh, there's only one piece of pizza left. Hey, Brandy, there's someone creepy outside the window out there. And she's like, what is that?
What's that over there?
That was your pizza gobble sound. That was pretty funny.
I'm all,
Look, a three-headed monkey.
Well, if you surprise John or upset him or whatever, he will pee all over you. He's just like the snake. He will just.
Is he like a turtle?
I have, in fact, similar to that, I have a plan for if I ever have a bear encounter that scares me. I will just pee and poop myself in front of the bear and see if that doesn't run it off. Like, God, this thing smells.
Can you do that just at will? Do you just poop at will? I can't poop at will.
No, I don't think I can. But you throw a man-eating bear in front of me, and I bet I can.
Be aware that this strategy does not work with dogs, as they'll just eat anything.
Oh, yeah. Poor Bowler. Does he still have a?
Or naked hairy men. That's a different kind of bear that I'm talking about. Nothing.
Oh.
All right, moving on. So.
Are we famous on certain websites? Wow. Wow. Busy. Your whole dance card is full, Mike. I can see.
All I'm saying is McElroy's got a nice beard going there. I'm just saying.
I know. It does. He looks like he's been losing weight too.
What are you down, like 100 pounds now?
70.
Wow, that is amazing.
Oh my fucking god.
Best I ever did was 130, but then after that, just nope. This is the weight I'm going to be now.
Yeah, I went from 330 last year to 260 now. So.
That's awesome.
And I did it by doing Jenny Craig. No, not really.
It's fantastic. By doing Weight Watchers, sorta. Sorta.
So we got a few points of, I guess, really just discussion, more or less. The first one is kind of about the philosophy of lying. And I was talking about this with Brandy earlier. Is a lie really a lie if the person believes it's the truth? And I think she and I at least came to the conclusion, well, if you really believe it's the truth, then you're just mistaken. You're just mistaken rather than lying.
Yeah, I've heard people talk about, like, when it comes to, especially, like, teaching religion to kids, I've heard that people actually say that some true believer teaching their kids something that they believe means they're lying to them. And, like, really, they don't think they're deceiving their kids. They just really believe this is true. I mean,
they actually are deceiving them if
well,
the fact is that.
It's unintentional deception, though. I think is the idea there.
Yeah, of course it's unintentional.
It seems to me that for most descriptions of a lie, there needs to be an intentional deception there.
Right, there has to be some volition. Yeah.
Yeah, but if you just fire the nuclear missiles in the old silo in Fallout 3, is it really immoral if they land on a village of natives in China who are survivors? Because you didn't know that the missiles were going to launch if you put in a bit of codes. And you did it. I know every single one of you who played Fallout did it.
I may have.
I don't know what you're talking about. Look,
I
all right. I might have been a little strung out on Psycho at the time. I had a thing going. I had a little addiction to that, and I was using stim packs like crazy, and I just don't remember. I don't remember. All I'm saying, I just don't.
Your Psycho has worn off.
That even if the person is not lying, that it's still immoral for them to teach things or to other people that aren't true.
Mm-hmm.
And what if they have doubts and they still teach them? Is that then immoral?
I think that might be a case of somebody lying to themselves. If you tell somebody something more confidently than you yourself actually believe it, then you're being dishonest, I think.
Which along that line, so here's a question: can you tell yourself a lie enough, or can you convince yourself to believe something that at one point you know is a lie? And can that go from knowing it's a lie to eventually believing that as truth? Can you deceive yourself into thinking something is true that at one point you may have known isn't?
That's I don't know. That's an interesting question because you see that a lot with like cults.
Yeah,
the cult leader who makes something up, like the Heaven's Gate people or the Joseph Smith and all that.
I can't say conclusively that you can. It is my opinion that yeah, in fact, you can do that if you practice. If you practice a line of thinking long enough, eventually that line of thinking becomes the narrative that you tell yourself, and at that point, you've completely deceived yourself.
Or is there a little part of yourself that knows that you're lying to yourself, but you just try to push that down?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Although it's really so hard to know what's in people's hearts, so to speak, you know?
Right.
When I was younger, I used a kind of similar method to lying to yourself when I did some acting, theater acting. So I would pretty much just convince myself of the truths that would be necessary for the role.
So you were a method porn actor? Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
I wish it was porn. I would have get laid.
I really am delivering this pizza to this naked woman.
And he does have double
really
the
does
sausage.
want it.
She loves the double sausage.
So here's kind of a personal question you can answer or not. Like, what's the biggest lie you've ever told or fallen victim to, or just some funny story about something that you might have lied about? I don't know about the biggest lie. The biggest lie I ever fell victim to, but a lie I feel like I fell victim to was Christianity in general. I was convinced and had myself convinced that was a thing for some years.
Yeah.
Yeah, mine's definitely. I fell for Amway. That was the biggest
Oh,
lie I ever
wow. Yeah,
fell
that's
for.
a big one. That is big.
I'm not going to discuss that any further because it was stupid, and I realized it pretty much right after.
They've definitely got their game down, though, for convincing people that they're legit, so I can understand that one.
I was convinced that those chick tracks were actually classic literature.
I was convinced that the sequels to The Matrix were going to be good movies.
Oh man! Well, you were lying to yourself. Do you still did you convince yourself that they were actually ever made sequels to the?
Yeah, I mean, I'm still waiting for them to actually make them, but I convinced myself that they would be when they did.
I don't think it's ever going to happen. I was told sequels. Yeah, I don't think it's a thing.
What?
I convinced myself that George Lucas had talent.
I've been told by many things. Listen, Islam wants me to...
Your hate mail.
Islam made sense. What else? I don't know.
Oh, yeah.
I was a very gullible and still am relatively gullible. My default, some people are kind of born skeptical. My default was always just sort of to accept people. Like, okay, just accept things at face value pretty much. I'm very trusting by nature, and so it's not hard to get over on me as far as things like that go. But so I can't think of the biggest thing, but you name it, and I probably say, yeah, like UFOs, ghosts, yeah, all of that. Mysteries of the unknown, everything on Unsolved Mysteries, everything in the 80s that was like...
In Search of, yeah.
Yeah, I don't remember that, but I would have loved it, I'm sure, so...
Yeah,
back in the 90s, I tried to participate in one of those chain letters that if you send this to a bunch of different people and like send like $1 to this person, that you're going to get a bunch of money from these other people in return.
Yeah.
Oh wow! Did you ever get?
You were on $1.
I got $1 in the mail, actually, but that was it.
So it only cost you the cost of a stamp, then, yeah.
That's pretty cool. You got $1 for the cost of a stamp. There you go.
Yeah.
And
$1.
Here's conversely, rather than a lie I ever told was interestingly. A lie I would never tell. I would never lie about food. So I would never tell you, oh yeah, that's not hot if it was hot. Or so, like if I thought something tasted wonderful or terrible, it was some weird, it's always been some weird thing with me. I would never lie to you about food. I might implicitly play a joke like, oh, here, I'd pretend to smell boiling vinegar when I was making a reduction back in the kitchen when the new guy was there. Like, oh, here, get a smell of this. I'd tell him. I wouldn't tell them it smells good. I wouldn't tell them it was going to make their eyes water. I'd pretend to smell it and then let them get a big old whiff of it, but I would never be like, here, try this. No, it's not hot. And then, habanero.
I'm sorry, what? My Tourette's is acting up. You better wrap this up.
Yeah, we better.
Yeah, as a Finn, I'm pretty susceptible to authority because it's a cultural thing. Pretty much.
I agree.
Yeah.
Oh, I almost forgot. Back in the 90s, I also bought magic sand.
Magic sand? What the fuck is that?
I've never heard of that either.
Well, it actually was this thing that I saw like in the back of like a National Enquirer or something. And it's supposed to be special sand from some sort of special place, and if you sprinkle it on your doorstep like every day or something, it'll bring you good luck or something.
Yeah, it's awesome, and I pissed all my money away on the X-ray goggles. Damn it, I didn't even see the thing for magic sand.
I wish there was an advertisement for penis homes.
Well, there might just be one there, no. In our what
segment? Yeah. go ahead. You do that. I've robbed you of your segue.
So we are going to go ahead to our what segment here, where we will discuss the concept of the penis home, which
I really want to hear about this.
Go on.
it might not be something you've heard about here, being over
Brandy,
in Finland.
listen
This
up.
has been big over in America.
For your penis, or a home shaped like a penis, or
There is a pastor named Mark Driscoll who is in charge of a group of megachurches over in I think the Pacific Northwest, like Washington State, Oregon, or somewhere.
Here? I bet this is a guy who has said something stupid before, and we've probably discussed something he said before too.
I wouldn't be surprised if we have. But things have gotten pretty bad for him the past few weeks. People have been, like the member church, the pastors of his member churches have been speaking out against him and talking about how he's creating this atmosphere of fear and depression in the church. One of the guys got fired for saying this to the board of the church. But let's see. There was a post on a forum from 2001 where he was posting on a message board for a church under the name William Wallace II. You may have heard Brandy laughing heartily in the background there. She's muted right now, though. So very rarely do you know this. If you've been an evangelical Christian, you know that this kind of attitude of male dominance and female submissiveness exists in the evangelical world, but you don't really see it said so baldly as what he said here. I'm going to quote him. The first thing to know about your penis is that despite the way it may seem, it is not your penis. Ultimately, God created you, and it is His penis. You are simply borrowing it for a while. While his penis is on loan, you must admit that it is just sort of hanging out there, very lonely, as if it needed a home. Sort of like a man wandering the streets looking for a house to live in. Knowing that his penis would need a home, God created a woman to be your wife, and when you marry her and look down, you will notice that your wife is shaped differently than you and makes a very nice home.
Is my hand then the summer home or something?
That's temporary housing.
Oh no, you see, he responds, therefore, if you are single, you must remember that your penis is homeless and needs a home. And my volume is fucking up again. I'm going to start that over again.
Is that a transient penis, then?
Therefore, if you are single, you must remember that your penis is homeless and needs a home.
It's a transient
But though you may believe your hand is shaped like a home, it is not. And though women other than your wife may look like a home, to rest there would be breaking into another man's home. And if you look at a man, it is quite obvious that what a homeless man does not need is another man without a home.
If I buy a fleshlight or pocket pussy, is that like buying a travel trailer to live in until I get a home?
Yes, it's a tent.
Or does this give a whole new meaning to homeowners association?
Well, even if you're married, your penis spends a lot of its time, most of its time, vast majority of its time away from home.
Well, he's at work when he's not at home.
I'm pretty sure that this would make a brothel an apartment complex.
Also gives or a hotel. Anyway, also you could say that. Now I totally lost my train of thought with my stupid hotel joke. Homeowners association, homelessness. Damn it, I lost it. I'll be back.
Penis.
Ha ha.
I was gonna say similar.
You got the biggest laugh just by saying penis.
Dick joke.
It took us a while.
I was gonna note that at the beginning of this, you said some of his congregation was troubled by some of the things he'd been saying, right?
Yeah.
I don't know if this is. I don't know who it is, but I think we were listening to Cognitive Dissonance the other day, and they played a clip of some pastor talking about. Basically, he was using the Bible to justify the execution of gay people, and I thought, I'm listening to this guy, this little audio clip of this guy, and thinking, I would be, even in my day of being religious, I would have been terribly disturbed by what this guy was saying. I wonder if it's the same guy or someone, a case that's similar. Like, that is beyond radical there.
It was Cognitive Dissonance, and it was the guy talking about volcanoes and the earth is vomiting up, that God finds homosexuality to be an abomination, that that the earth vomits up.
Which is definitely a thing that's happening, right?
Yeah, and then they were joking, Cognitive Dissonance, like, oh, that's what volcanoes are, is vomit. Earth vomiting up other earth.
Just vomiting it up gay people.
Does that mean there's like a big pride gathering in Iceland or something? Like, I don't know.
Is that what's been going on there? They've been messing up flights for a long time.
Well, Hawaii is very gay friendly, I've noticed.
What is a fabulous state?
Aloha.
Aloha, hey!
You'll just have a seat.
Send
And
death
hate
threats,
mail.
feedback, hate mail too, feedback at Irreverent Skeptics.
So for our next what here, moving on. I think was it last show we talked about there was a bill in Ohio to change the science standards to kind of be more flexible and allow religious language, or so that the standards couldn't discriminate against any particular religious or political interpretation of science.
You're asking me to remember what I talked about 2 weeks ago? Are you kidding me?
Well, there's good and bad news about this law. My volume is jumping over. God damn it. Google, fix your shit. There's good and bad news about this. The language that could have allowed the teaching of creationism was removed back on... What day is this? Why do people need to put dates on their articles? This is ridiculous. Ugh.
Just say back then. Or...
Language that could have allowed the teaching of creationism in science classrooms was removed from a bill that was designed to eliminate the Common Core education standards in Ohio, but the fate of the overall legislation is still kind of uncertain. I guess the original bill set up specifications for science standards that said they must not prohibit, quote, political or religious interpretation of scientific facts in favor of another. And a lot of people were saying, well, this is just a closet way to sneak in intelligent design and creationism. And the people who were behind the bill said as much. They said, oh yeah, this is definitely going to let us teach intelligent design. But the bill was revised after this became public to say that now students would, quote, review in an objective manner the scientific strengths and weaknesses of existing scientific theories in the standards. Which, although it sounds better, really isn't all that much better, because this whole strengths and weaknesses thing is the new tactic of creationists.
So Ohio, is it a red state or a blue state? I don't know much
It's
about
generally
Ohio.
pretty conservative, but
Okay.
it's a swing state. It's one of those states that can really decide the election. But the deal here is when you talk about the scientific strengths and weaknesses of existing scientific theories, when you're teaching science to high school students, generally you just teach them what we know. You're not all about emphasizing any sort of dissent from the scientific theories, because that's the sort of thing you usually do in higher education once you actually get them the facts about what we know. And the idea of stressing, emphasizing the strengths and weaknesses is a way to sort of engender a distrust in science. You know, you're teaching kids that, well, these ideas, which are actually pretty solid, there's still some discussion about whether or not they're factual or not. And it's the sort of thing that's going to allow, say you have a creationist teacher in a classroom, they're now legally allowed to put a whole lot of stress on the quote-unquote weaknesses in evolution, global warming, that sort of thing, and just kind of give a nod, the requisite nod to the strengths of the theory.
I don't see the problem with it, because American students are so strong in the STEM fields and so far ahead of the rest of the nations, like the rest of the countries, that I just think, well,
oh, no.
you know, we have all kinds of room. We have all kinds of room to engender nonsense and inject nonsense and pseudoscience and bullshit into their education, because, like I said, solid. We're number one.
Okay, I see. You're being sarcastic.
America bless. Because America.
Oh my God!
America.
Yeah, the last thing we need to do in this country is start giving leeway to this bullshit. It's crazy.
Yeah,
thank
the
you, Brandy.
strengths and weaknesses is definitely creationist language.
I
It's
was hoping Erno would sprout beer out of his nose. That's what I was going for, but all right.
Nice.
I would be out of my
John
nose.
says my deadpan is my best feature sometimes, so.
It's awesome. Yeah, sometimes she'll say something, and I look at her like, are you fucking
Spit take.
insane? And then I realize, oh.
So
Alright,
yeah, good
go
news and bad news. The good news is they've gotten rid of the language that talks about political and religious interpretations. Bad news is that they're still making a point to talk about strengths and weaknesses of theories, which is just the last tactic.
I welcome the
thought
Chinese
the good
overlords.
I thought the good news was that the chick was missing half of his brain or something. Huh. Go figure.
That's another story. Yeah,
So
we will
from
get to that in a moment.
we can go right to it if you want. We segue into that.
Yeah, that's a good story. I saw this all over Facebook and news sites, and I'm hearing myself again, John.
So is he missing the 10% we mostly use, and she's using like the 90%?
I'm not responding. I'm not responding to that. No. There was a woman who was found to be missing her cerebellum, which is kind of amazing.
To 10%?
Yes, actually, it represents about 10%. Oh, goddamn volume. Fucking thing. Yes, actually, it does represent about 10% of the volume of the brain. But the cerebellum is a part of the brain that's responsible for fine motor movements like posture and balance and motor learning, like learn how you kick a ball, and speech. And it's found down at the base of the skull, and it contains about half of all the neurons in the brain. Usually losing partial function in the cerebellum due to an injury or a disease isn't really unprecedented, though actually missing your cerebellum from birth is pretty rare. But there was a 24-year-old woman found in China who was the 9th person known to be living completely without a cerebellum. The journal Brain documents her case.
So
I guess
she could never be a ninja then? Because it's a fine motor skill and speaking thing.
Yes, she could not be a ninja. I guess they found out what was going on when she sought medical attention because of nausea and vertigo, which is unsurprising. If you don't have a lot of motor control, you're going to be having issues with your balance. They did some CT scans and MRI images, and it revealed it's just completely missing, which explains the symptoms.
So
it also explains why she was unable
to compensate for the missing part, right?
Yeah. I mean, it also explains why she wasn't able to speak until she was 6 years old or walk until she was 7, and she could never play with kids or jump around or anything like that because of it. It's kind of amazing that, if you think about it, that she's able to move and walk and talk at all.
So Van Halen's Jump isn't her favorite song then?
Might as well not jump. Yeah. But let's see. So what's interesting about this is that it's an example of the plasticity of the brain, right? Your brain isn't just this fixed, rigid, inflexible device. If it's damaged or you're missing part of it, you still have a chance that your brain is going to rewire itself to restore at least part of the function. But this is a case where she didn't have this at all. So it's not like the brain is restoring something that was damaged. It's basically the only thing I can think of that would explain this is she has the genetic code to develop a cerebellum. It just never actually started developing. And so somewhere in her DNA is the thing that would start the development of a cerebellum, and maybe that activated in other parts of her brain that started to take on those same responsibilities. I don't know. It's kind of a fascinating case because it seems like if you never had something, your brain shouldn't be able to make up for it, but somehow it still does.
Huh. Go figure. The next story will be something more awesome, right? Like oral sex.
Yes.
Something like that.
Simulated oral sex.
So from KRON4.com, I'm just going to read this straight from the website. Everett, Pennsylvania. A Pennsylvania teenager is facing criminal charges after posting pictures to Facebook of him simulating a sex act with a statue of Jesus. The young man posted that he took the pictures in late July at the statue of a kneeling Jesus in front of the Love in the Name of Christ Christian organization in his hometown of Everett.
Looks more like Love in the Face of Christ to me.
Family court consist of desecration of a venerated object.
Because that should be a fucking law. That should definitely be a law, right?
Pennsylvania law defines desecration as defacing, damaging, polluting, or otherwise physically mistreating in a way that the actor knows will outrage the sensibilities of persons likely to observe or discover the action.
Okay, pause.
Whose name has not been released can face up to 2 years in a juvenile jail if convicted. Stay classy, Pennsylvania.
This is the Quaker state. Can you tell? Our liquor laws and stuff like that. You can tell, like, we are the Quaker state here in Pennsylvania.
What
so
the
you're saying we have good motor oil?
Hey, what? Hey, wait a minute. We just did an article about Mark Driscoll talking about penis needing a home. This guy was just putting his penis home.
Well, I have heard a lot of people say they found
like you said, it's God's penis.
Yeah,
it is God's penis. He's just giving.
So
he's just
returning it. It wasn't big enough or something.
He was finding his home in Christ.
I mean, where's the blasphemy in that? Come on.
What
I think
we have in Jesus.
I think I know where the blasphemy is. Yeah, it's in that he didn't take the statue to a musical first. Like
well, he didn't give the courtesy tap. You know what I mean? Like there was no forewarning of any kind.
Looking at this picture. Look at this picture. I want to say the biggest crime really is that this pasty fucker was topless and had plaid shorts on while he was
And a
doing
baseball cap
Yeah.
turned
And,
backwards.
oh yeah,
I was
and the
going
ball
to
cap
mention-
backwards. There's that.
I was
Yeah.
going to mention those pants. Oh, God.
Although in this picture, Jesus looks surprisingly dark. I'm kind of impressed.
I think it's the shadow. Jesus looks like he's done this before. That's what I'm saying.
Well, he doesn't appear to be wearing knee pads. So.
Rodeo, you know what I mean?
he looks like he's cupping the balls. Little how's your father? You know.
But really, what is this statue designed for, if not shoving your dick in his face?
And so there's that.
Doesn't Jesus say, "Come unto me, all the little children of the world"? I think this is him taking a Sunday school seriously.
Right.
A little too
and
literally
then
there.
some people took that a little too literally.
But you know what? I gotta say, this whole idea that there is a law, fucking volume, stop swishing. This whole idea that there's a law about desecration of a venerated object, are you fucking kidding me? You know what? Fuck it. I'm done. The toilet is now my holy object. Every time you go to the bathroom, you're breaking this fucking law. You get 2 years in prison. I am praying to the porcelain gods.
So you're venerating your toilet.
It is my throne of the porcelain gods.
All toilets, he said. So that means all of us in trouble. Yeah.
That's
Poops
ridiculous.
for piety.
This should not even be illegal. This is ridiculous. I don't care. What did he do that hurt anything? You hurt someone's feelings and that's illegal? Fuck that.
Mm-hmm. I have the inclination that this will probably go nowhere in court. The whole idea, though, that it has to go to court is fucking ridiculous. The idea that you can be arrested for that is fucking ridiculous. Absolutely fucking ridiculous.
I mean, I saw a thread about this on Reddit where the top post was a woman who described herself as a Christian and a grandmother and said he doesn't need to be punished for this. It's a statue. So even religious people are like, well, give it a fucking break.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think in Finland you would be convicted of breaking religious peace, because we have those types of laws here.
And how strict of a law is that? Is that a fine? Is that jail time? What is that?
It's a small fine.
Oh, okay. I mean, it's outrageous, but it's not the same as this kid. When they talk about juvenile detention, that is prison. You're going to get pounded, ass, raped, prison. You're going to have to put it on your applications when you apply for jobs. It may mess up your student loan potential. Like, there's all kinds of consequences.
So tell me about
as I've learned today, the way to prevent that is that's not its home. That's not its home. Oh, that was terrible.
What are you doing? Go to your home.
All right, so that's pretty much going to do it for this episode of the Irreverent Skeptics podcast. Before we go, a couple things. Dumbass, what you got coming up on Amateur Skeptics here soon?
Oh, I should announce we've got a new member of the Dumbass Media Empire, the No Religion Required podcast.
Excellent.
Welcome.
believe.
No religion required. I'll have to check it out.
Definitely.
Yeah, I believe it's at noreligionrequired.com.
What a coincidence.
We should, hey, maybe you can hook up getting someone from there on the show. We can do a little cross-advertising, huh?
Yeah, sure, that would be awesome.
Yes.
Yeah.
Or get Brian over from the Amateur Skeptics. That'd be cool.
Can you tell us a little bit about
we
it?
should.
I know nothing and have heard nothing, so this is not the pretend. I just am clueless for real.
Oh, well, I've listened to a couple episodes. They do interviews and they talk about different. Let's see. They've got. They don't say a number there. Oh wait, they do. Yeah, they've got 26 episodes out right now.
Do they have a token female?
Yes, they do.
Good. Excellent. I would love to have her on.
That's what we're going to take. The token.
Yes, please. Okay.
Are they intelligent and or funny?
They are intelligent and or funny.
Okay, fuck that. They're not coming on the show to shut me up.
We'll lose all 4 of our listeners, including John's mom. So, yeah, that's probably not a good idea.
Speaking of listeners, we recently ran an ad campaign on Facebook and got a ton of new followers. So to any of you who are watching us, listening live today, thank you very much for liking us on Facebook, for joining the show. We appreciate it.
And if you use iTunes or Stitcher to find our podcast, please leave us a review and a rating. That will help us find, or help more people find us, and we would greatly appreciate it.
Also, these are a couple hours you're never going to get back. I do apologize.
Yeah, I'll live with it.
Fuck it, I don't apologize.
So on Amateur Skeptics, dumbass, what's new on Amateur Skeptics?
Oh, I think I missed the last episode, but let me see what the latest one is. I'll skip that. My computer's acting slow.
Okay. So, Mike Bowler, what you got coming up next for a Skeptic's Guide to Conspiracy and/or the Bitch Spot report?
Well, the Bitch Spot is kind of on hiatus. Cephas is having there's some issues where he works, so I'm not sure when we're going to be back with Bitch Spot. I was supposed to have an episode.
Oh no! I want to have an episode.
But yeah, I'm still doing Pearl Harbor conspiracies.
You got sidetracked with Minecraft, didn't you?
Yeah, that didn't help. That didn't help at all. And actually, I'm kind of itching to get back on it right after this.
Nice.
I'm digging it, but I probably should. I gotta do some
I
shopping.
see. Digging it. I see what you did there.
Yeah.
I like that. I see what you did there.
So lastly, before we go, I want to offer prizes to the first listener that sends some feedback, be it positive or negative, to feedback@irreverentskeptics.com. So the next email we receive will receive a prize, and we'll announce on the next show.
We should have gotten some feedback.
Repugnant.
I got someone to tell me they sent one, but
Repugnant, one
I didn't hear about it.
And that's gonna do it.
That's a cue